Hello and welcome back to episode 26 of the Shark Source podcast. I am joined as always by Shaedon, and I'm also joined by Javin today. He, if you don't remember, is our guest who's a Bruins fan. So we're going to be talking to Bruins, and we've got a great episode coming up for you today. First, our lead story is a trade just broke today. The Ottawa Senators reacquired Ryan Dzingel in exchange for Alex Galchenyuk and Cedric Paquette, who were sent to the Carolina Hurricanes. So we're going to be discussing that trade. We also have some Oilers news. Real deal, James Neal has been placed on waivers. They've made some other moves too. We're going to get into that. And then we're going to start getting into some larger stories. The surprisingly hot starts from the Florida Panthers and Montreal Canadiens. We're going to be discussing that. Then Shaedon so far is vindicated on his early season predictions of Vancouver being bad. So we're going to get to that and talk about why we think that is and where the Canucks go moving forward. We're also going to, of course, talk about the Bruins, as I already said, and a new segment, Title or Tank. We'll get into that later. Title or Tank is the segment. It's new. But let's get into this podcast. We're starting off with this trade. Ottawa Senators send Ryan Dzingel to the Carolina Hurricanes for Alex Galchenyuk and Cedric Paquette. So, Shaedon, what are your thoughts on this deal? Definitely is not one I heard any rumors about, so I was surprised when I heard this. What do you think?
Well, I was surprised when I saw it because I slept. This is the first time I slept in on the weekend, and of course, I missed a couple big moves. But Dzingel has been kind of struggling in Carolina ever since he signed there in 2019. And for Galchenyuk, there's nothing much else to say about him. It's like it's 16 in the past 3 or so years. Like this is his final chance. Like if he doesn't get going in Carolina, he's going to Europe or the KHL. There's no other way about it.
Yeah.
I think it's just a shake-up for both teams. Ottawa. Recently they started to play better, but they're still near the bottom of the league. Carolina, the offense really isn't coming from anyone besides Sebastian Aho and Svechnikov. So it just looks like a big shakeup for both sides. Dzingel played in Ottawa before. He had his best years in Ottawa there. So hopefully for Dzingel and the Sens' sake, he can regain his old self with the Sens. But for Carolina, getting a solid fourth line center, Cedric Paquette, and a depth player in Alex Galchenyuk doesn't hurt. I do think Dzingel is the best player, of course, in this deal. And I do think he will regain his old form because he can get top 6 ice time there in Ottawa. He's familiar with the city. And, I was shocked to see it. It's something we haven't really heard about. The only rumors we've heard about from the Sens are about Derek Stepan. So, if Ottawa's going to make a trade, I would have thought Stepan would have been the deal, but they elected to go for Stefan Galchenyuk. So, I think it's good move by Ottawa. Carolina, takes a low risk, high reward, kind of. And,
Yeah, I also think that for Galchenyuk, I think that is a big part of this story. His 6th team. What is wrong with this guy? I don't know. A former 3rd overall pick, but just can't find a home. And he had some success with Minnesota at the end of the season last year, and I thought that's where he would stay. I was surprised to see him go to Ottawa, and it did not work out for him. And so now he is headed back south of the border to Carolina. Cedric Paquette, for those who don't follow the league too closely, he's like a depth player. Career high is 19 points. He played with Tampa last year, so he was on that cup-winning team, but definitely nothing special there. The big pieces is Galchenyuk for Dzingel. Dzingel, while you would say he's the better player in the deal, his career high in points is 44 points. Now it was actually 56. So that is higher than Galchenyuk's, which was 51. But I think that there's more to it than that. Even though the point difference in career high isn't too much, I think Dzingel is definitely the better player in the deal. But definitely the Senators needed to change something because and I called this. A lot of people called this. This wasn't exactly a big, hot take, but the Senators are struggling. We knew this would happen in the North Division, but they had to do something. But like Shaedon, I am surprised that Derek Stepan was not involved. What about you, Javin? What are your thoughts on this deal?
So I remember hearing back in the early stages of the season, I remember hearing that the Senators were having problems with locker room issues, and I think maybe Galchenyuk was a part of that. I don't know. I can't say if he was or he wasn't. But it definitely seems like Alex Galchenyuk may be a problem for some teams, at least with his character. Zingle, I think that definitely was trying. I mean, I don't know why he would get moved. I think like maybe he just wanted to find a new home, or maybe just Carolina wasn't satisfied with him. But Alex, that's the main story. Is Alex Galchenyuk going to another team after being like heard that he's had a bad character and he's been going to so many teams over the last couple of years. This is 6 teams. Like this is a large. This has to be something wrong with him as a character in the locker room. I think so at least. It's just I don't know why Zingle got traded. Maybe it's just because he needs somewhere else to go to. It just seems a little weird that Alex Galchenyuk could get traded again.
Yeah, definitely an interesting move. We'll see how it works out for Ottawa. While they did have to change something, I think even though they're only 16 games into the season, they're done. I don't think they have any chance. Whereas Carolina is making a playoff push, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out for each team. All right, well, I think that's about all that needs to be said about that trade. Not too major, but definitely nice to have something change, some sort of move right before our podcast. So we're happy to have that. Next, we're going to be moving on to the Oilers. So the Edmonton Oilers have placed James Neal on waivers and assigned Dylan Wells and Devin Shore to the taxi squad. I'm not familiar with who Dylan Wells is. I'm sure Shaedon can fill us in on this and these moves. So, Shaedon, what are your thoughts on the Oilers' moves, particularly putting James Neal on waivers?
I was surprised to see it, but I'm not against it. I mean, Neal's obviously not the same player as he was 3 years ago when he was in Vegas, or hell, when he was in Nashville. He's getting up there in age. His contract isn't great. I mean, it's better than Lucic's, but it's still not good. It's not a great contract. But I think this move is solely for cap space purposes. They activated Pugliarvi off the COVID protocol list. They did the same thing to Koskinen, and honestly, it just seems kind of weird that just the timing just seems kind of off because they placed Chase on the waivers like I think a week ago, and I mean that move freed up another mill in cap space. So to waive Neal and put both him and Chase on the taxi squad is making me think that Holland has a trade of some sort coming up. This is just me speculating, but yeah, Neal just hasn't really been that great this season. He has, I think, 3 points in 8 games or something like that. The good thing is that if Edmonton wants to buy him out, they can. He would have 2 years left beginning at the summer to buy him out. That would extend his contract to 4 years, and the buyout cost would be, I think, like 1.9 mil, which is almost a 4 mil decrease from what he's getting paid right now. Whereas a guy like Milan Lucic, I mean, his contract isn't buyout proof. He has to be protected from the expansion draft. So yeah, it's something I didn't expect to see this season, but I can see why they're doing it. But yeah, that's really it. And on Dylan Wells, we basically just been calling up our third goalies from Bakersfield, our AHL team all year. First was Stuart Skinner, now he's in the AHL. Now they placed Dylan Wells in the taxi squad. My bet is that they're going to try to trade for a third string goalie. Maybe that's why Neal's going on the taxi squad, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, just a move that was kind of shocking to the hockey world. It's not like Neal's like a big player, but it just really came out of nowhere that was surprising.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance he's going to get claimed. James Neal just because of that cap hit, but he's not a bad player. Oilers definitely won the trade, I would say, but I am surprised. Well, I'm not. I'm not too surprised actually that he's on waivers. If this is just a cap move, just shuffling cap space around. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if anyone claims him. I highly doubt he does get claimed. If he does, we'll be sure to talk about it on our next show. Javin, any thoughts on this? Final thoughts on any of these moves before we move on?
So with James Neal, it's definitely something that I kind of saw would happen. Necessarily with how he's getting up in age and how he started off the season. He only had 3 points this season so far in 9 games. I mean, that's definitely not worth what he's getting paid right now, and I think it's definitely just them trying to move some cap space away from the team, and maybe they're trying to go for another player. I don't know. I think that's what they could be trying to do.
All right. Okay, we'll move on. Another more minor move, but we want to get all the current news out of the way before we get into our next topics. But now we are moving on, and we're going to be talking about some of the teams with a surprisingly good start. First off, Florida Panthers. This was a team, I don't know if you remember our predictions episode podcast, but I absolutely went off on the Panthers for their offseason decisions. I said this team was not going to make the playoffs. I said they were going to do bad. And I do stand by the fact that I think letting Dadonov and Hoffman go and not really replacing them with an elite offensive forward, I still think that's a bad move. But the Panthers are red hot. They've won 8 out of their first 11 games with only 1 regulation loss. As we are recording this podcast, they're currently down 2-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So maybe by the time this is posted, they'll have another. We'll see. But regardless, the Panthers have been very impressive so far. And while some people might say their schedule, they haven't played any difficult teams, well, you could argue that there are no real difficult teams in their division other than Tampa. I mean, maybe Carolina too, but the Panthers have played the Blackhawks, the Jackets, the Red Wings twice, and the Predators, and then the Lightning. And they had a very convincing 5-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning 2 nights ago. So I think this team could be legit. Now, the biggest problem with the team was goaltending, and a lot of people pointed at Bobrovsky and said, can he step up? Will he be able to live up to that contract? And while certainly, he was very disappointing last year, this year he's not playing great. He's playing a little better. He currently has an .899 save percentage. But Drieger really stepped up for the Panthers, and he could be looking at taking Bobrovsky's job. It would be a little weird having a $10 million backup goalie, but if he's playing better, he's playing better. So as long as the Panthers can get decent goaltending in their division, which I think is one of the weaker divisions in the league, I think they have a real shot at making the playoffs and potentially going far. But Shaedon, what do you think about the Panthers' hot start?
You basically stole the Drieger fact away from me because for $10 million, Bobrovsky has been a subpar, which is kind of an understatement. But one guy that's really been impressed me is Carter Verhaeghe. He has 10 points in 11 games. If people are gonna say he plays with Barkov, but I mean, I don't know. For the value he's been bringing on that $1 million contract for 2 years. He's been showing a lot of people that he can play in the top 6. He can provide a good defense game, and it's really brought Florida a lot more balance. One guy I'm kind of wary on is Owen Tippett. He's off to a slow start. He's supposed to replace Hoffman, and so far he hasn't really done that. A couple of Florida's additions like Patrick Hornquist has started stepping up on the back end. On the back end, Noah Jolson has been half decent. So, right now, Coach Quinto has done an amazing job with this team. I do think going forward, though, they have to play Drieger a lot more. Even though Bobrovsky's 5-0-1, like those stats are worrisome, and that's another reason why you don't sign goalies to a long-term deal worth a lot of money. Like, look at Carey Price. After he signed that contract, he's been on a huge decline ever since. So, hopefully for Florida, Spencer Knight, whenever he's ready, and Chris Drieger can carry the fort. because right now Bobrovsky cannot do that.
All right. Any thoughts, Javin, before we move on to our next team?
So, for the Florida Panthers, I really thought that both their goalies have been playing pretty good. Mcavoy, not so much. I mean, sort of in a way he has, but I mean, Huberdeau is showing out right now with 15 points in 11 games, and that's a lot. He's had the first hat trick for the Florida Panthers this year. He's definitely been a playmaker, and Barkov as well. They've all been putting up good numbers with the star players that they have. Hornfist as well. He's also put up 11 points. He's definitely stepping up, and it kind of shows that he was a good player to trade for. I think Florida definitely could go to the playoffs if they continue playing as well as they did and how they beat Tampa. If they can continue doing stuff like that, I think they could actually make it to the playoffs and maybe go past the wild card round or anything like that.
All right. We're going to now switch to another team that had a surprisingly hot start. We'll actually stick with Javin on this one. Javin, I can't remember if in our prediction video you picked the Habs to make the playoffs or not, but what do you think of their hot start? They definitely have cooled down a little bit since the beginning when they were, I think, first in the league at one point. But what do you think of the Habs currently in second in the North Division?
Now, I don't really like the Montreal Canadiens, and of course I am a Bruins fan. No doubtedly, though, right now, they're playing pretty well. I mean, look at how Jake Allen's played. He played pretty well. Not great, but I mean, still decent for a backup, and I think that them trading for a goalie was a good thing. Because Gary Price isn't just going to carry that. They needed someone to help on the back front in case Gary Price had to go out or just needed a break. And I think definitely signing Toffoli was a great thing. They took him from Vancouver, and Vancouver is struggling hard. And they've really improved their team with Toffoli as well. And Josh Anderson as well. He's playing really well for that trade. That was either a bust or a hit. And it just seems like Montreal has got the pieces to necessarily make it into the playoffs this year and maybe prove all the doubters wrong. So far, at least, that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Jake Allen and Carey Price because what a lot of people don't really realize is Carey Price is having a very bad start to the season. Currently in 8 games played, he has an .896 save percentage. People criticize Bobrovsky for his contract and he doesn't deserve it. Right now, Price is not playing like he deserves that contract. He's also getting paid $10 million, and he's at over $10 million, and he has a worse save percentage than Bobrovsky. Meanwhile, Allen, in 6 games played, has a .933 save percentage, which is unbelievable. And of course, it's a small sample size. I doubt that will hold. But, I've always been a Jake Allen supporter. I said that Jake Allen should have been the starter in St. Louis during the playoffs. I said they should have stuck with him. I said they shouldn't have traded him. And right now, he's looking like a great piece for the Habs so far. But like we said in our last show, me and Shaedon, I still don't think the Habs can keep this up in that division. I think that they're going to fall out. Yes, they're in second right now, but they're tied with Edmonton, and they're only 6 points ahead of Vancouver, who's way out. But Calgary, who's the 5th place team, so they're 1 out of a playoff spot, they're currently only 3 points back. I don't think Montreal keeps this up. I still think they miss the playoffs. But Shaedon thought that they would make the playoffs at the beginning of the year. So what are your thoughts on the Habs so far?
I think so far that I've been really impressed with them. They've been on a decline right now. I think they're currently losing 1-0 to
Leafs.
Montreal right now. To Toronto right now. But they should still be fine. They have a good young core in Suzuki, Kotkaniemi. Josh Anderson's been playing well there. The defense is controlled. Romanov, Shea Weber, Jeff Petrie looks like a Norris candidate right now. Goalies like you said, Carey Price has been worrying stuff, but Jake Allen's been great. They should be fine. They're gonna have little rough spots here and there, but they're one of 5 Canadian teams that have to get those 4 spots, and I think for the Canadiens, they're definitely gonna get one of them to keep this up.
Now we're gonna transition to another Canadian team. This is a team I slept on them all of last season. And I slept on them in the regular season and in the playoffs. And now all of a sudden I'm coming back around, and at the beginning of the season I had the Canucks making the playoffs. Well, I was definitely wrong about that so far because the Canucks have been a complete disappointment. They're currently 6th in the North Division. Their only reason they're not last is because Ottawa's somehow even worse. But the Canucks have had a terrible season. They've had the highest goals allowed in their division with 66 goals allowed. So Braden Holtby and Thatcher Demko are not working out in net for them, as well as their defense is just not playing that well. And they've totally struggled despite having a pretty high cap hit. So Shaedon, you did call this. I think you did have them missing the playoffs. So what do you think about the start for the Canucks?
Everything that I complain about them is happening. Their goaltending has been awful. I hated the decision of bringing in Braden Holtby and letting go of Jacob Markstrom, who will probably be a Vezina finalist right now by the way he's been playing. Their defense has been awful. Quinn Hughes, he's dynamic offensively, but he can't play defense to save his life. Travis Hamonic has been great there. Their depth scoring has been all gone because they lost to Foley. Jake Buchanan's been trading rumors. He's been scratched for a while. Their bottom six is full of old veterans who are getting paid $3 million to $6 million. Jay Beagle, Russell, Brandon Sutter, Louis Erickson. The only players that are playing well on forward end are Niels Hoglander, Brock Besser, Bo Horvat, and Elias Pettersson. And those are the only guys showing up every now and then. And if your star-studded forwards are playing very well, but you can't get a save from your goaltending, or you can't play defense, you're not going to win games. Like, before the season started, I said the Canucks would be the 2017-2018 Edmonton Oilers, where both teams made the second round game 7, and they lose in a close series. Both teams would have high expectations the year after, and Edmonton would sink back to the bottom. And it's happening to Vancouver right now too. And I don't know if Jim Banks is saying this. Like, they don't really have a star-studded prospect on all of their positions. Like, Thatcher Demko is supposed to be that elite goalie. He hasn't shown that yet this season. On defense, they really don't have anyone. Jet Wu, maybe, but he's like a second pair D-man at best. And there's been questions about Podkolzin's game in the KHL right now. So for the Canucks, I don't know what you do. You probably sell off assets and try to regain some young guys because you traded a lot of prospects last year to go all in at the playoffs, and it's led them to here. So hoping for the Canucks' sake, they start turning it around with maybe if they win against Calgary tonight, but I don't see it. I think it's over for the Canucks.
Yeah, this is very tough because the Canucks situation, it's self-inflicted. Because the reason they couldn't bring in more assets in free agency, the reason they couldn't keep Markstrom is their terrible cap management. And this was Jim Benning's biggest weakness. Drafting, he's done a great job drafting. I think especially getting Quinn Hughes when so many teams like Detroit passed on him. And the Canucks picked him up and, bring in Pettersson, Horvat. They got all these young players, but then he gives these contracts to guys like Louis Erickson and Tyler Myers. And the problem with the situation they're in is this. A lot of teams are banking on the expansion draft as being their way out of cap hell. Because with an expansion team, you can more cheaply get rid of an asset that is taking up a lot of cap space. You'll have to give up something, but usually you can do it more cheaply. The issue is Seattle and Vancouver are going to be big rivals. And I don't think Seattle is going to be looking to do Vancouver any favors when it comes to the expansion draft. So I really don't know how the Canucks get out of the situation they're in. And you brought up those trades at the deadline last year to go all in for the playoffs. If you listen to this podcast, you remember I was against that. And I said, are you going to win a cup? If not, don't make this move. And they've given up a lot of prospects, and now they seem to have a ceiling. And even if they don't, even if they make the playoffs again next year, they've definitely hurt their long-run chances of winning a cup. So Vancouver's in a lot of trouble, and I think Jim Benning is definitely on the hot seat. because I don't blame Travis Green. I think he's actually a good coach. So I definitely, even if you do fire him, I would at least fire Jim Benning first. So Jim Benning definitely is on the hot seat. So Javin, any thoughts on Vancouver, their whole situation?
So with Vancouver, I think Jim Benning's been a lot of the problem. I don't know how a lot of people haven't seen this necessarily in a way. I know a lot of people did see this, but a lot of people didn't really see how he was offering those bad contracts. Those bad contracts hurt them right now, and you can clearly tell. Look at every single signing that's been from Jim Benning that have been like long-term, huge contracts. Louis Erickson, he just put on waivers. Like, he's not a good GM for signing wise. Gentry has definitely picked out a lot of good players for Vancouver. That could be key to rebuilding the franchise, like Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson. A lot of these players he did pick, but it just the goalies in their horrible signings have crippled them, and it's coming back to haunt them right now. And I don't think they make the playoffs. I think this causes them to fall and lose and probably get maybe second to last or even last if Ottawa can pick it up. But they are just horrible so far.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, we're now going to move on, and we're going to be talking about the Boston Bruins. Here's Javin's specialty. The Bruins right now have had a red-hot start to the season. They're currently first in the league by points percentage. And so, Javin, just let us know what is going on with the Bruins. What are your thoughts?
All right, so with the Bruins, you can see from players like Brad Marchand, Therese Bergeron, they're stepping up and being huge pieces to this team right now and helping us a lot. McAvoy as well. McAvoy has 11 points in 13 games. He's been an outstanding defenseman. I think that he's been slept on a lot. This season, he's proving that he's not just some average player. He's becoming a great player. And especially from Pasternak. He just came back and he's at 6 games only, and he has 8 points. This man is an absolute stud. And I think that these players, with a lot of our players returning from injury, it helps us a lot. And our defense actually has been pretty well. Kevin Miller came back and he had a huge start to the season. He came back hitting. He looked great. He looked like he was perfectly fine, healthy, and everything. It just, I didn't think that we were going to do much. But looking at our team now, Tuukka Rask held up pretty well. I didn't think so. I still stick with the fact that he does choke in games. He has a problem with it, but he definitely is holding his place right now, and he's being a great goaltender right now. I think that this team, after losing all these pieces and doing everything, I think we might actually be first in our division and make the playoffs at the top of our division. It's been crazy to see, because I didn't even see this. I thought we were going to completely maybe lose this season and maybe rebuild this offseason. I really thought that. But this year, they're proving me wrong. And Charlie McAvoy is one of those players that I'm just really astounded by, and I'm really proud of him. It's definitely showing to be we have a huge core that we can build around. And even after Patrice and Brad Lee, I think it's definitely going to be a nice core we can build around. These other players that we have on defense, I thought were going to just completely fall off, but they really held their place. Kevin Miller held his place. Zaborov's held his place so far. And a lot of these defensemen that I was sleeping on didn't think would hold their place with Chara being gone are really stepping up right now, and Charlie McAvoy is one of those huge guys that's stepping up, and I think this team can definitely make a run. And I didn't think that, but I really think now that they can actually make a huge run and maybe even go to the cup again if they can keep this up and keep the scoring up and fix the scoring mostly because we're playing great on defense. Our defense is amazing right now. We only have 26 goals against. That's third in the league. We're doing great defensively. I didn't expect this to happen, but man, we're showing out really hard right now. And Pasternak is one of those players that I'm so glad the Bruins ended up drafting.
Yeah, I'm glad one of my predictions is finally working out because I had a few misses, but I did call Boston winning the East Division. And I'm glad you brought up the offense because I would say that is where Boston can even improve. They're currently first in the league in points percentage, but that is despite the fact that their average in goals for. I can't exactly see what number it is, but they're basically middle of the pack in goals for. So I think if even though they're like third in goal differential, so I think there's plenty of room for improvement for the Bruins, even from where they're already at. So definitely, I think they could make it a run at the Cup here. Shaedon, were you surprised by the Bruins' red hot start? Did you think they'd be first in their division? What do you think about this so far?
I was kind of surprised because I said at the beginning that the loss of Krug and Chara would hurt them. But yeah, they really surprised me. Guys like Brendan Carlo, Matt Grizzlick have taken a huge step up. Mcavoy has it's been great as he always has. The goaltending, Halak and Rask have been great. And even before Pass came back from injury, Bruins forward core was playing unreal. Nick Ritchie, especially, who had a terrible playoffs in Boston, has really emerged as a solid second line power forward to them. So yeah, I think Boston has turned a lot of haters on them, their heads around, and yeah, they can easily get back to the Cup Finals if they keep playing like this.
All right, and we're going to move on and just want to preface this next segment and the previous segment. These numbers, the stats and points percentage, this is as of 6:43 Mountain Time on 2/13. So there's currently games going on. So by the time you listen to this, some of them will be over and these standings won't be completely accurate. But just letting you guys know in case you're confused, you're looking at the standings yourself. This podcast will be uploaded probably at the end of the night. So currently there will be a few changes. But as of now, we're going to be doing our new segment. It's called Title or Tank. And basically what that means is title is a Stanley Cup title. Like that's a championship title. And tank is you tank for draft picks. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom 5 teams in the league by points percentage as of February 13th, 6:45 Mountain Time, and we're going to take these teams and we're going to say, should they tank? Should they go for basically missing the playoffs and just try and get a first overall pick, high draft lottery pick, or should they go for a title? Meaning, should make a push to make the playoffs? They don't have to be cup contenders, but playoff or tank doesn't sound as good as title or tank. So we're going to start from the bottom. We're going to start with Ottawa. I think this will be a pretty easy pick. I'll just start it off. I'd say Ottawa should tank. I didn't think they had any chance of making the playoffs before the season, and they have even less of a chance now. They're a terrible team, and they have no chance of making the playoffs, so they should just focus on tanking and trying to get a high draft pick. I think they should definitely trade out Derek Stepan, maybe trade out, even though they just signed him, Dadonov. Basically anyone who's not young, basically anyone who's not Kachuk, Shabbat, or Stützle should be, available to be, and a few other prospects should be available to be moved. I think they have no chance of making the playoffs. What about you guys? Any debate here? Ottawa title or tank?
It should be tank 100%. I think that's like no question.
All right, what about you, Javin?
So I think tank as well. I really was surprised though. I really thought they could actually pick things up, and it just fell. I'm meaning my words when I'm saying this team needs to tank, and they need to find a top pick to get because man, it just doesn't look good in Ottawa right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tim Stützle is going to be a great player, I think, and he's had an okay start, but they're just not ready. Matt Murray's been a big disappointment, and they just do not have the depth to compete in the North Division. So I think no debate here, they're tank. Next up, the Detroit Red Wings. I think we'll keep this short too because I don't think there's much debate here. Tank. Now they have some young, exciting players. Dylan Larkin. He's not too young anymore, but he's the captain of this team now, and I think he's good. They've got hope. They're hoping that Moritz Seider will turn out well, but they definitely had a lot of misses in the draft. I mentioned this earlier when they didn't pick up Hughes and Quinn Hughes. So I think that Detroit needs to focus on getting another top pick. I'm sure that Steve Yzerman will make them a competitive team again soon, but for this year, they should be tanking. What about you?
I agree. Like, there's still a lot of problems with that team. They need a lot of prospects to fill out those positions. So, yeah, I think Detroit should take 100%.
All right, what about you, Javin?
So for Detroit, definitely need a tank. Their goalie situation is horrible. I mean, it is terrible right now. Thomas Greiss has literally one win on the season so far. This is just an horrible team all around. There really isn't any upside. I hope Steve Eiserman can turn this team around and make this team good because we see what he did with the line and we see what he's done before. But man, this Detroit team and their goalie situation and everything just reeks.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Thomas Greiss because he really is an example of how good the Islanders' defensive system is. You see, he goes from the Islanders to the Red Wings, and his save percentage drops precipitously. We saw in 2019-18 he had his career high in save percentage at 927 in 43 games played. Now, so far in 12 games played with the Wings, he's got 901 save percentage. So definitely that's a credit to the Islanders, but he's just not, the solution in net for them. And yeah, Red Wings should be tanking. All right, now here's where it gets interesting. We're going to get into the third, fourth, and fifth last place team in the league by points percentage. So next up is Vancouver. We just talked about them. We know that they do have talent. We know that it's possible for them to turn it around maybe, but they have not enough young prospects, and we know that in the North Division and in the shortened season, they might not have enough time to recover and make the playoffs. So, Shaedon, title or tank?
For which team, sorry?
Canucks.
For the Canucks,
Did I not say
yeah,
the team? My bad if I didn't say the team.
yeah, I think they should 100% take. I kind of already went into it. A while back ago. Yeah, just sell off all the veterans of the UFAs if you can. Get some young pieces, build around that core. It'll be hard to do, but it's the only option at this point. So yeah, they should tank.
Yeah, I forgot to say mine at the beginning, but yeah, I do think they should be tanking this year. I don't know if they should completely tear it down because they still have a good core and they can still make a run for it, I think, next year for the playoffs. But definitely this year, I think with 17 games played and only 6 wins, I think this season's a lost cause. I think tank for Vancouver. All right, Javin, what are your thoughts on the Canucks before we move on?
Man, this team, I really don't know where to start. Hopi, I really thought maybe he could turn this playing style around and really just get better, but man, no, he is terrible again. He has a .885, and he's just terrible this year. Their goalie situation, Demko, I really thought he could be a shiny star and basically win a lot for this team, but man, I don't think he's ready for it. And the Justice team, they really don't have the star pieces to build around. Yeah, they have Quinn Hughes, they have Besser, they have Pedersen, they have Horvat, all these players they have. But the rest of the team that isn't the top six is really terrible, and I really think that they should possibly consider tearing this team down. But they really need to go into the draft and find some good quality players and fire Jim Benning, who needs to be fired.
All right, next up, the San Jose Sharks. They are currently with a .423 save percentage. Now they're tied with 2 other teams for this, but we're just gonna. So I guess we're gonna have to do the bottom 6 since the Kings are tied in save and points percentage. But Sharks, title or tank? I'm going to go with title. I don't think the Sharks should tank this season. Now, why? Well, because I think a rebuild for the Sharks is basically impossible. They have so much money locked up in bad contracts that it's going to be impossible to trade their veterans. I mean, which veterans would you trade? Hurdle is still young, and he's basically the only good player with a movable contract. It's impossible to get rid of Burns, Carlson, Vlasic, or Jones, and they're basically taking up most of our cap. Couture is taking up a lot of cap too, but I don't think anyone wants to see him traded. So because a rebuild is impossible for the Sharks, I think we might as well just push for the playoffs, especially in a weak division. Do I think the Sharks have any chance of contending for the Cup? No. But I think that we could easily make the fourth playoff spot. And so even though we are currently tied for fourth in points percentage, I think the Sharks should not tank. All right, Shaedon, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, NHL.com says the Sharks are seventh or seventh in the Honda Western points percentage. I don't know.
I'm talking about league standings.
Oh, okay, sorry. But I don't know. I mean, like you said, all the veteran contracts on that team, Burns, Kane, Couture, Vlasic, Erik Karlsson, Martin Jones. It's hard to tank, but it's also kind of hard to contend in that way because you have virtually no cap space to bring anyone in, and to bring someone in, you kind of need to trade an asset, but you can't really do that. So I'm kind of leaning towards the tank area. I just still think the goaltending is horrendous. The defense needs a lot more work because the three best defenders from 5 years ago, Vlasic and Burns and prime Erik Karlsson from Ottawa, are aging and they're getting worse and worse. But you can't really trade them because no one's going to take on their contract. So um, it's really hard to say, but they should try to tank in some way because they need a young studs, young forwards, for the next decade, but they don't have any. So if they can try to trade at least one of those bad contracts, it'll be hard. But if they try, they should tank because even if they squeak into the playoffs, chances are they're probably going to get swept or even in a five game series just because their depth isn't good enough, they're aging, the goaltending is bad, and then you're left with a middle of the road draft pick. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Sharks.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs. But with no way to rebuild, what do you do? All right, Javin, what are your thoughts on the Sharks before we move on?
Oh man, the Sharks. Where do I even start? This team has a horrible cap situation. Look at all these veteran players that are playing horrible, who really are stuck on huge deals that nobody's going to take on. I don't think any team is going to trade for any of the players that they have. Martin Jones, I don't think anybody wants to trade for. Dubnik, nobody's going to trade for. I mean, a lot of these players, a lot of people don't want to trade for. And it just, man, the Sharks really have tried to bank on Devin Dubnik and Martin Jones being a great goalie tandem. But boy, is it backfired. Devin Dubnik has 0 wins this year. And it just doesn't look good for him. It doesn't look like he's turning this thing around. It doesn't look like he's going back to his old form. Man, I think age is hitting him hard, and a lot of the Sharks are getting older, and there's a huge problem in that locker room. They definitely need to trade, and I think since they have all these contracts, I think they need to go for the playoffs. But boy, they really need to get some young forwards and young defensemen, and even a good goalie. They really need a goalie.
Yeah, I'm glad you sort of mentioned Dubnik. Dubnik has been hurt, and this could mean we might see the solution to our goaltending issues. Alexei Melnichuk, who we signed from the KHL, he's only 22 years old. He made his debut against the Kings in relief of Martin Jones last night. He only faced 5 shots. He did stop all 5 of them. Now, I don't know how long Dubnik will be out, but I do hope we get to see Melnichuk start at least one game. He did not start tonight or this afternoon against Vegas in the Sharks 3-1 loss, but I do hope we get to see him start at some point because I really do hope he's the solution because Jones and Dubnik are just, they're not NHL goalies. That's just the truth. They're just not good enough. Jones has had some good shootouts recently. I guess that's something, but I don't think he's good enough, and I don't think Dubnik is either. Okay, now we've got 2 more teams we're going to go over, tank or title, and we're going to start off with the New York Rangers. I'll let Shaedon start out this one. What do you think about the Rangers, Shaedon? Title or tank?
I'm going to go my first title here. they're a skilled team, no doubt about it. Shaedon, young, great goalie. A good defense core in Adam Fox, Brian Lindgren, Jacob Truba. Even with the loss of Tony DeAngelo, it's still up and coming defensive core that can keep on growing. And even on the forwards, Kreider, Panarin, Zibanejad, Strome, even though he's been struggling, Lafreniere, Kapokaka, who's also been struggling. They also have Pavel Buchnevich. There's some good young pieces on that team. And even though they're underperforming, they can still make the playoffs if they had that one big piece. And I think they should go to the playoffs because if they don't, imagine if New York, if somehow New York misses and they win another draft lottery, which the league will go insane. But I think this is the perfect chance for them to go on. They have a lot of cap space. They have a bunch of ELCs. They have a bunch of great contracts. They should go in, get a top player on their trade market. They have assets to use, and that could be the piece that can push them over the edge. So I'm gonna go title on this one.
All right, Javin, do you want to weigh in on the Rangers before I give my ruling?
Yeah, so the Rangers really have a lot of pieces. I mean, Panarin, Buchanan, Pavel
Buchnevich.
I butcher his name every time.
Yeah.
But man, these players, they have a decent core and they have a lot of good players. Man, last year they got the first overall pick, but boy, this year so far starting off has been horrible for them. But I think if they can somehow turn this around and get rid of some of those horrible players in the locker room that we've seen and we've heard from, like D'Angelo, we've heard a lot about a lot of these guys. Man, they probably need to go for a title. They need to trade for something. Maybe, I don't know, a top 6 forward and just necessarily try and get to the playoffs because this team is a really good team to build around. But boy, right now so far they look terrible.
With the Rangers, I'm going to go with Tank here. And with the Rangers, they released that statement telling their fans that they were entering a rebuild. But now the fans, they got a little taste of playoffs, and all of a sudden, people want to throw it out the window. But rebuilds don't happen super quickly. I mean, last year, the only reason they made the postseason was because of the expanded playoffs, and they were out really quickly. I mean, that just showed me that this team is not deep enough to be a real contender. They've got Panarin. He's a superstar. He's 29, so he's getting older. But other than him, I don't think they have enough players to really go after to get back to where they were, when they made the Cup in 2014. They won the draft lottery, bringing in Lafreniere. That's a huge help for their rebuild, but he's not good enough right now so that they're ready. So I think that tanking is the right move for the Rangers, and that's why I'm saying tank for them. Okay, final team. They are tied with the Sharks and Rangers in winning percentage, the LA Kings. So, Shaedon, do you want to start us off, title or tank?
Tank. Quick has been not all their veterans haven't been great. Drew Doughty's off to another slow start. Jeff Carter's aging up there. Same with Dustin Brown. I'll take Kopitar still putting up the points. But yeah, this team isn't ready for playoff contention just yet. Quinton Byfield hasn't even played a game in the NHL just yet. I don't even think Turcotte has played yet either. So just keep on taking. The Kings have a great prospect pool, and they should continue to build on it by trading away more assets this season. So, I think Kings are the option.
All right, I'm going to also agree with it. I'm going to go with tank. Jonathan Quick, in 6 games so far, he has an 8.67 save percentage. It's almost hard to believe. You look at that, 8.67 save percentage, whereas Cal Peterson in 8 games has had a 9.26. So right now he's looking like the starter. I mean, Quick is 35. I think he's pretty much done. Drew Doughty, that contract, a lot of people will say it's bad, and I do think it's not a great contract for a 31-year-old, even though he's playing pretty well, 11 points in 13 games. But, I mean, definitely it's a better contract than any of the Sharks' defensive contracts. But, I don't think the Kings are going to make the playoffs this year, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that they should have been expected to. I am a little worried that people might start calling for Todd McClellan to be fired because I actually think he's a very good coach, and I think he's done very well in LA with what he's been given. A lot of people don't remember, but they finished the end of the 2019-20 season with a 7-game winning streak. So I think that the Kings are a good team or have a good future, and I think McClellan is a good coach. So, but I think for this year, I'm going to go with tank for the Kings. All right, what about you, Javin? Kings title or tank?
Yeah, again, this is another team that really needs to tank and get some more pieces. They do have a huge prospect pool. Don't get me wrong, but this team just isn't ready for it. I don't think they should even try and go for the playoffs because, boy, if they do go into the playoffs, they're getting out really fast because this team is very unexperienced and they don't have a lot of depth necessarily. I really hope these players can grow and develop because they do have a huge prospect pool, but man, it was really sad to see this happen to the Kings because I know how much of a prospect pool they have. Just for none of these players to come through and really just break out on the scene, it's kind of sad. Especially, Jonathan Quick, man, he's starting out really bad. He has a 4.05. Like, man, he's not doing really well. He's 35. It's sad to see, but he's probably going to retire in these next 2 years, possibly. But boy, he's not the same as he was, and it looks like Pedersen is probably going to be the goal. Man, they really need to tank.
All right. Well, that will do it for that segment. And unless there's any other topics you guys wanted to get to, I believe that'll do it for the show. Is that all, guys?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you check out previous episodes on the channel. We did a very good episode on breaking down the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade in episode 25, or maybe it was 24. So check those out. Make sure you check the description for the Instagram. I'm hoping it'll get it active more later in the season, but we'll see about that. We'll see how it goes. And make sure you check out Shaedon in the description as well. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to leave a like on the video, and we'll see you next time.